All right, everybody, we're live. First, I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. My name is David Pipe. I'm a local mortgage agent here based in Guelph. I'm here with my co host, Rob Kent, who is a local realtor with eXp Realty, also based out of Guelph. Tonight, we're going through and just sort of helping you to understand in this video how you can be successful as a buyer in the market in 2021. So we're going to talk through some of the strategies, some of the challenges that we're all facing, and some of the ways that we can maximize your outcome and maximize the chances that you're going to get, the house that you want and get approved the mortgage that you need for that this year in 2021. A couple of housekeeping pieces for you. So first of all, we're recording the meeting tonight. Everybody will get a copy of the meeting for tomorrow. We usually send it out within about a day. So if you have any questions about the content, you can share it with your family or watch it again later. Secondly, please, we do encourage questions. If you have a question and you're not sure about the answer, you can use the chat function in your... Oh, I think we're muted. You can use the chat function in your Zoom meeting to get a hold of us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions that way. Thirdly, we're going to open it up for Q&A at the end. So if you did have a question that you wanted to ask in person, or if you wanted to wait until the end, please do so. Rob, are you ready to go with that being said?
Yep.
Great. So a little bit about the agenda. First of all, what we're going to go through tonight is, what does 2021 really look like? What does the market look like? What are we seeing in the marketplace? We're going to talk about why work with a local team. We're going to talk about the benefits and the reasons why it might help you to get more of what you want working with a local team. We're going to talk about financing, of course, and some of the strategies and some of the ways that you can be prepared. And we're going to give you a brief overview of the process and how it all works. So if you're a first-time buyer, or if you're not a first-time buyer, but it's been a couple of years, things have changed in the market. So it'll be good to walk through that together. And then, of course, time for Q&A. So we expect the whole webinar to be around 40 minutes, but things could go a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. So we appreciate your flexibility. I'm just going to keep letting folks in as they drop in. It looks like we have some more coming in, so we'll give everyone a bit of a minute to jump in and just get connected to the audio, and then we'll proceed. Rob, while we're at it, did I miss anything? Do you have anything you wanted to add at this point?
No, everybody can hear us okay?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I think so. We're not muted. We were briefly muted in the beginning,
Okay.
but we're totally good now. Yeah, so
Yeah.
just letting a few more people join in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very good. So far, everyone is muted. Again, for those that are just joining, we would be happy to open it up to questions. You can unmute at the end. For now, if you have questions about anything that happens in the webinar, you have questions about the content, just drop it into the chat, and I'm happy to answer them or to walk through with you whenever you drop that question in. Thanks to Ryan for telling us that things sound okay. So with that being said, we'll just continue on. So Rob, why don't you get us started with this big number?
Yeah, the big number. So yeah, 19.8%. This might not mean a lot, but so what this is, medium sales price in Guelph from February 2021 to February 2020. So basically over a year, almost a 20% increase in the price of homes. Typically, what we see in a year over year, is about 5 to 6%. So the 20 really stands out, and I'm sure the people who are currently in the market buying have seen this. The massive increase in the value and the price of homes. So
Exactly. So tell us more about that.
yeah. So again, so here's some more. We got to go over stats, right? It's all about stats and numbers. 701,000. So this was the median sales price for a home in February in Guelph. Over to the right, you can see a little bit. 795,000 for detached. Semis and townhouses, 651,000. Condos and apartments, 489. And the funny thing is that the number, the 489, this is what an attached would have looked like, just a couple of years ago. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So
So,
Rob, are you seeing any particular category sort of bearing the brunt of those price increases? Or more people flocking to singles in this area or semis in towns? Are you seeing the competition a little higher in some areas than others?
It's really hard to say, and like we'll get into the reasons why the increase in numbers. But I mean, the one thing is like the GTA with people coming from GTA moving here, and essentially bringing their money, right?
Right.
So if we're seeing much more $1 million homes in Guelph. Like a couple years ago, you'd see a few, and then people are like, "Oh, wow, it's listed for 1 million." Well, you can see the number that the average is 795, so there's a lot more $1 million homes. Um, but I really think the driver is in the semis in the towns. Like they've gone up considerably more than anything else. And this is probably what people are looking at buying right now. The majority of the people, even the condos. So some people, like I've had clients that were looking at detached homes at the start of their search, and they were priced out of not only detached but the semis and towns, and then they have to purchase a condo to get into the market, right?
Yeah, what I
So
find with the those that are on the financing side, it's just a lot of the folks trying to get into the market, with down payments that used to be able to afford you a really nice detached home. The prices are just going up so fast that it's actually hard to even keep up the down payment savings with the increases, and they end up
yeah,
putting more money down on maybe a smaller place and just hoping to be able to ride that equity growth for the next couple of years until they can move up when the timing is right.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. It's all about
Yeah.
getting in when you can. If you can afford it, you get in.
Right. Right, exactly. And it makes sense because, if your house is worth, say it's a semi worth around 650 and prices go up this year, it's sort of a strange year. Maybe they go up by
Yeah,
10%, which is abnormal. That's a $65,000 increase going into next year. So
that's
there's
right.
not many of us that can save up an additional 65 to keep your equity whole. So in a lot of cases you're better off to make that move a little quicker, but then you can ride that equity growth for the next couple of years as that happens.
Yeah,
Good to know.
exactly. That's exactly
Good to
right.
know.
So, um,
So tell us about
yeah, so
2021.
things
What does it look like?
yeah. So I 2021 is a continuation of 2020 with COVID. Obviously, COVID has changed the real estate market. Kind of gone are the days of open houses. Remember when you're first buying a home and you're going out every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, going to a bunch of homes, checking out the open houses, talking to the realtor that's working there, whether they want to talk to you or not, whatever. And so now, yeah, no more open houses. Now it's basically you're doing a lot of your shopping online. So you're dependent on professional photos being done, maybe a virtual tour, videos of the home, which are being, you know, technology is growing and growing just over the last year alone. Um, but that's not to say that you can't go physically see the home. So basically, what you would do is you would, book a showing with your realtor. Your realtor, full disclosure, your realtor is probably going to qualify you before they do, and we'll get into more about that, about what the qualification looks like. But you've got to be ready to be purchase a home in the market. It's not like what it used to be. Um, you know, the buying process versus the past. It's not and it's not like you go and look at a home and you put an offer, or you either put an offer in that day if you love it, right? Or you think about it, you go back, you look at it a day later, maybe even a week later, or a month later,
Right.
maybe it's still on the market a month later. Now homes are on the market for typically a max five days, 4 days to
Yeah.
a week,
So
week max.
it sounds like what you're saying is that, we used to have more time to make these really big decisions, and now buyers just don't get the luxury that they used to have. So you're going to go
No,
in there and, you might be able to get, is it 30 minutes, 15 minutes in a showing, and then,
yeah,
somebody else is maybe behind you, and then you're sort of left to yourself to
Yeah.
decide. Basically, am I gonna spend half a million or more dollars based on 30 minutes? I joke with you, but like, I think I spent more than 30 minutes researching which cell phone I was gonna buy, or what,
Yeah.
like
What you're gonna
what.
watch on Netflix. Sometimes
Yeah,
it takes
yeah.
you
Like I
more than
probably
30
wasted
minutes to
more than
figure
30
what
minutes.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch on Netflix.
Yeah, so the point is like that puts a lot of stress on buyers, right? That's put
Yeah.
a lot of stress on buyers. So it's really worth
It,
knowing that the world is a little different.
yeah. Yeah.
So
It is completely different. So it's you have 15, 30 minutes to make the decision. Another thing too is also with the buying process is knowing price, right? So, not necessarily is the price of what it's listed at even close sometimes to what it's going to sell for. We're seeing homes
oh
sell for 50,000, 100,000. There's even, the one in Kitchener that was, advertised over $300,000
yeah,
for a semi. So, it's just you have to kind of educate yourself and knowing that there's going to be competition, right? It's not
right,
just going to be you submitting an offer. Um, and of course, there's holding offers, right? So for those that aren't familiar, what agents or what listing agents and sellers are doing now is you have, like I said, about maybe 4 or 5 days to view a home. Um, and then on a certain day, they're going to hold offers. So they're going to look at any offers that they get that day at a specific time. So basically,
right,
you have to have your offer in, and you're probably going to be competing with, probably at least one other offer for the most majority of the time. Sometimes even up to 30 to 40. I had clients,
oof,
what was it? A little less than a month ago, I guess. We were competing with 32 offers. There was 33 total offers and we ended up winning.
yeah,
Submitting a bully offer, that's also sometimes a strategy, right? So if the listing agent and the seller agree that if they receive an offer that is, I laugh, but it's the Godfather, too good to be true or too good to turn down, then
right,
they'll take a look at it that day.
right.
So yeah, things are much much different.
Yeah, it feels like a totally different world, versus when, I bought the house that we're living in now, or a lot of, my
Yeah,
contacts and clients have bought their first home, or whatever. So, I mean, the
yeah,
point is that it sounds like there's got to be a way to be successful when you're faced with like less time to see the house, more competition, unrealistic pricing, or at least unclear pricing, right? Because
yeah,
what I heard you say was, people are listing a house for X, knowing that it's going to go for much over that price because
yeah,
they're planning to hold offers to generate that demand. So, um,
yeah.
I'm I'm hoping that we can talk about how can people like minimize the chances of losing in these situations? How can they get through these things together? So maybe why don't we jump into what can they do, or is there something else we need to know about the COVID process or how things are before we jump into that?
Well, I mean, yeah, with the COVID process. So again, it's a little bit different. Like, when you went to an open house, you take the whole family. It'd be like a family event going out. So now the showings, no children.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just the two adults going in with the realtor, 30 minutes for the showing. Um, and it's going through all the safety precautions. Like I tell my clients when I go in, you don't need to touch anything if you don't want to. Let's minimize it to one person doing the touching. I'll do it. And then it's, basically kind of using your hand sanitizer after every showing.
Hmm.
Masks always, right? So we're doing everything we can to keep your clients safe as well as the sellers as well, right?
Right. Right.
So I mean those are the things to keep safe. With regards to strategies, so we can get into
Let's move into
strategies.
that. Yeah. No, so
Yeah,
it's funny before you mention it, it's just funny because I think back to, last year, and they talked about how the market's going to totally drop as far as pricing, right?
yeah,
Everyone was worried about a real estate catastrophe, and
yeah.
based on what some of the pundits were saying, especially I know we talk about CMHC and what they were thinking, and
CMHC.
Yeah, the guy's never gonna live that
Yeah,
down, poor guy. But anyways,
I
I
know.
get what they're coming from, but it's true. Like, it does make it harder to sell and harder to buy, right?
Yeah.
So we got to have some ways that we can help to mitigate and help people to make the right decision. So, from your point of view, how do people be successful this year? What do they need to do?
Yeah. So again, preparation and execution, right? It's right there. Uh, I mean, the first thing you want to do is you want to know how much you can afford. And we had talked about this before, about being qualified. So going through with your qualified buyers, and by that I mean, you're speaking with, a good mortgage broker, mortgage agent, your bank if need be. And it's about knowing how much you can afford and getting pre-qualified, right? That is key. Being
Yeah,
pre-qualified, knowing how much you can afford, so that you're looking at the right homes, right?
yeah.
It really makes no sense if you're going and you're looking at $1 million homes only to find out that you're qualified for 5 or 600,000, right?
Yeah, I mean, knowing that you don't get much time with a property, right? This
Yeah.
is the thing that I try
Yeah.
and explain to a lot of my clients. I say, well, listen, like, you can go and shop and you can look, but what's going to happen is if you find the perfect house for the perfect price and you're not already pre-approved, you're at a
Yeah.
huge disadvantage because everybody who came in before and after you is already pre-approved and may put an offer in without the condition of finance. Because that's happening, and I
Yes.
hate to say it, but it's happening. So, it just puts you at a disadvantage, and that's why, at least on my side, and it sounds like on a lot of the realtor sides, getting that client to really understand how much that they can afford, how much the bank will, or the lender will approve them for, is just ultra critical. Step one, don't skip it. Even
Yeah.
though it's fun to go house shopping, like, don't skip the money
It
part.
is. Don't skip the money part. Yeah. And that's just it. It's about being market realistic. So again, going back to the price, the listing price of homes, right? Sometimes those can be skewed. We're seeing a lot of agents significantly undervalue homes in order to draw much more people in. And it's not fair to the buyers. So it's about
Right.
having that conversation with a good buyer agent, and they should be able to tell you which homes have a good idea of how much this home is going to sell for, right? Or
Right.
at least a
Yeah.
minimum price of what a home is going to sell for. You have no idea what the top end is, because it seems like there's always one buyer out there that's willing to write a blank check, right? So,
Because they just don't want to deal with
but
the hassle. So it's just like,
yeah,
here.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's
here, I
crazy.
want this home, I'll just pay whatever. But I mean, you see that in some instances, but again, it's planning for competition too, right? Or trying to stay out of competition. But what you want to do, planning for competition, is have a strategy from day one, right? So it's being pre-approved. If you know you're going to be competing, like you had mentioned, David, financing condition, you know, it's going to be very, very tough. I tell my clients it's going to be very, very tough to win any offers with any conditions at all. Um, a lot of people say, "Hey, I want to put a home inspection in this." Well, we should have had that discussion a little bit earlier, because if we're competing with 10 other people, almost guaranteed all of them will not have home inspections. So as soon as you put in a
Yeah.
home inspection, it significantly decreases your chances of winning, because that is a condition that the seller's going to look at and say, "Hey, I've got 9 firm offers over here. Why would I accept an offer that has a condition in it, or financing condition, or heaven forbid you have to sell your home and you're trying to win with a sale of property condition."
That it's
So it's
just it's
about
crazy. Like, I'm sorry, Rob. It's just that just seems so crazy.
Yeah, it
So
does.
the point is, I guess, being, we can't change as an individual. We can't change what's happening in the market, right? You can choose not to
Yep.
be in the market if you want to, but
Yeah.
knowing that, there's so many people out there looking to buy a house, looking to move, maybe their jobs are changing, they're working from home, their families are changing, whatever. Be prepared, but with finances, be prepared also to, maybe pre-inspect, right? Is that's sort of a way that you can go at it, right? Is do those things
Yeah.
up front, and
Yep.
that will probably make a big difference for you.
Yeah, I always think of it like if you can't get a home inspection done, have a pre-home inspection done.
Yeah.
Have somebody take a look at that before you put the offer in, right? I understand now you're spending some money up front, but if this is the home that you really want, I think, a few $100s is definitely worth it for peace of mind as well, right?
Well, that brings
And
up a
it's
point,
about
Rob.
being,
If Yeah, sorry,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just going to say that brings up a point. So we have a question from the audience, which is Ryan's asking,
Yeah.
how many homes have the inspection done by the owner, and can you tell me more about what a pre-inspection is?
Yeah, so there are some agents out there that will do have a pre-home inspection done. I have a colleague; she does it on all of her listings,
Are you
all of
talking
them,
about the
and
sellers
it's
doing
actually
this?
the sellers are doing it. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, it's actually a good idea. You're giving the peace of mind of people of letting the people know what to expect, right? Now, if something does come up that's major that might need to be done, then you'd have to disclose that. But I mean, in most cases, you're giving them the information up front so that you can feel a little bit better about that firm offer that you're receiving from a home inspection point. Now from a financing, that could be a little bit different,
Right.
and we'll go into strategies of how you can win offers, with that. But
So on the home inspection, then, so what it sounds like you're saying, because I'm a buyer just like everybody else, except when it comes to the
yeah,
money part.
yeah,
Sometimes the listing agent or the seller will do a pre-inspection, and then the
sure,
buyers get to see a copy of that if they're serious or whatever. They can
yeah,
basically say, okay, I want
yep,
to see it. And what that does is it helps the seller to sort of like wipe away concerns that maybe the house
yeah,
might need an inspection. So it helps them to get top dollar. And they've paid
it
for that.
does.
The seller has paid for that because they think it'll pay off.
Yeah,
Or the buyer can do their own pre-inspection if it's not available. They'll send a home inspector in advance of offer day,
yep,
pay the money that it costs, 300 or 400, whatever it is, depending on the size of the house,
right,
and just consider that an investment in research before they have to put an unconditional offer in. So there's two ways it can
yeah.
happen.
Yeah, yeah,
There.
exactly. Yep.
Okay.
In most
Good.
cases, you'd probably the buyer would get their own pre-home inspection done. There's not a lot of agents out there that are sellers that will get the pre-listing. There are some, and it is a good idea to do that, but not
In
all of them.
today's market, it feels like the sellers have sort of like minimal commitment to do it because they're going to get the money
Yeah,
anyways. So maybe in today's market that might be tough, but as the market balances out in supply and demand, perhaps buyer or sellers may do this more often to encourage unconditional offers.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, good
Yep,
to know. So talking about that and leaning back into what you said about strategy and creativity, what are some of the
yeah.
other things that they can do to make sure that they're successful and that they get the house that they're really looking for?
Yeah, so I mean, you want to go in with a competitive offer, obviously. I don't ever suggest my clients putting in an offer if I don't think that they're going to win. I let them know up front, or the chances are, very, very minimal because what you don't want to do is you don't want to drive up that price. You don't want to be one of the offers that drives up that price. There's always offers that are driving up the price.
So you mean
You know,
even though nobody knows what the offer price is, if other agents
yeah,
hear that there's 15 offers,
right.
it makes the other buyers and the other agents feel like, oh, I better really sharpen my pencil on this because the competition
Yeah.
is heavy.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
see.
basically, let's say a home is listed for 500,000, and I have clients that want to put an offer in for 490,000, and we see that there's 10 offers on the home. Does it really make sense to put in that offer
Right.
for 490, knowing that very well that there's going to be offers that are going to be better than yours? Your, not so great offer is just going to drive up the price, right? Especially for somebody that really, really, so
Right. So I want to go back. I want to go back to the strategy because I think there's some important things we could talk about. But
yeah.
like a follow up question on the inspection thing comes in from Ryan saying, are the inspections public? So can all buyers see inspections that get done?
I don't think all buyers can. I think if you're going to be seriously bringing an offer, then yeah, they would send that off. I don't know that all that the listing agent would send it to all buyers.
So you're talking about
But the prospective buyers for sure. Yeah.
so you're talking about with
Like
the
if you're
if the
showing serious
seller has
interest
funded
and
their own inspection.
yeah,
Yeah. So if the
yeah,
seller's funded their own, they can show it to whoever they want, and they probably show it to serious buyers.
they
If
would. Yeah.
if you're the buyer and you've paid for your own, then that's only
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say not everybody, because I mean, I've gone into homes before where the home inspection was done by the seller, and that home inspection sitting on the table, on the kitchen
Hmm.
table, where you can, leaf through it, take photos, whatever
Mm-hmm.
of the home inspection that's been done. I mean, that happens as well.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
So,
Okay. Sorry. I think I just wanted to
no, no,
clarify
no.
that because I think it's a great
It's good,
question, and I think probably a lot of
good
people have that
questions.
question. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting back to some of the strategy, what else can we
Winning.
do to be prepared?
Yeah. So well, and so in winning the offer, having a strategy from day one, it's putting in a strong offer. So here's something, David, you don't necessarily have to have the highest. This is going to sound crazy. It's going to sound crazy even for realtors maybe on the call. You do not have to have the highest offer money wise to win.
Okay. Wait.
How do you
Stop.
do
Hold on.
that?
Wait. Stop. Stop. Stop.
Yeah. Whoa,
so
whoa, 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 whoa.
so I'm selling my house, and I'm going to take not the highest offer. Help me understand how that happens because that's people are gonna people's ears are gonna perk up
Yes.
around something like that.
Yes. So the way this can happen is you sell your buyers to the sellers. You let them in on who they are. It's, you're selling your clients. The one thing I like to do is if my buyers love the home, they're going to put an offer in on the home. Do a video. Do a video after your showing of the home and let those sellers know what you loved about their home and why you feel you'd be a good fit. Maybe your kids are friends with the neighbor's kids or something like that. If you know people on the street, name drop. You never know, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, doing video. If you can't do a video, even a letter to the seller is a great idea. I have minimum do this with all my clients. I get them to do up a letter. I've won, and I think three of the last four offers I've won have gone because of the letter. And I think
So
I'd mentioned to
so
you,
yeah, no, I'm just this. It's mind boggling, right? Because you think as a seller,
yeah,
everyone just looks right at the dollars, and I mean, let's be realistic. We're not talking about winning over an offer that's 50,000 more than yours, but
yeah,
when there's 20 offers, it's just like applying for jobs. When there's 20 resumes, if there's something you
yeah,
can do to get yours to the top, or if there's something you can do to get your offer to the top, and that might be a
yeah,
video that sells the story, like explain to them why,
yeah,
why
yeah.
you might be
It
the
is. That's
best
what it
person.
is. It's a story, David. It's a story. And if you're really good at telling the story to the listing agent and the sellers, you can win and you don't have
Yeah.
to. Now, you still have to be in the ballpark with the money. You got to be in the
Yes.
ballpark. You can't go in low and expect to win. But if you're in the ballpark, I had this happen like with the clients I'd mentioned, right? We weren't the highest offer. We weren't even the second highest offer. We were the third highest offer out of 33 offers, and we ended up
Wow.
winning because I was able to build a rapport. That's another thing. So you build a rapport with the listing agent.
Hmm.
You don't do things that are going to irritate the seller and the listing agent. A lot
Right.
of agents will do this. will irritate the
Right.
will irritate them. Um, Let them know who the buyers are. And so lastly, another thing you can do, we had talked about conditions, right? Financing condition. So there's a financing condition. There's going in without financing and just submitting your offer on a piece of paper. And then here's the trick. Here's having your mortgage agent, your mortgage broker, call the listing agent personally saying, hey, Mary and Joe, I'm working with these guys right now. I understand they've submitted an offer. I can tell you that they're good. They're good for the mortgage.
Right.
So that puts the mind at ease with the seller and the listing agent
Right.
that you know that the money that they don't have to worry about picking up the
Yeah.
deposit check tomorrow. That's coming. The deposit check's coming on day of closing. They don't have to frantically or think, oh, are they gonna be able to close or not? They've already been reassured by the
Right. I mean,
buyer's
it's so
lender
funny.
that
It's it's so funny. Just like when you think about the way that this usually works, I often don't hear from anybody in the process until there's a house that's been agreed to purchase. So how
yeah
so ask the question, how many times has, and I think part of that is like I could obviously improve the way that I do this by making that suggestion more often to my clients when they're out there. I say, listen, if you want
yeah
me to contact the seller, I will. But think
yeah
about how often somebody doesn't get a house and has to go back and put an offer on another place or a
yeah
fifth place,
yeah
all because maybe there was some color to the commentary that could have added, right? Like you just gotta, and this,
yeah
frankly, the same thing happens on the lending side. To be honest, like we're not talking about lending, but there are cases where it's a slam dunk, and like, yep, they're getting the mortgage, the numbers are perfect. There's absolutely no reason why this house is not perfect, but there's a lot of lenders, and the more you get into this, you realize that sometimes when there's a gray area, and there can be a gray area for a whole bunch of reasons. It could be credit, it could be income, it could be the house, it could be the situation, anything. A lot of
yeah
underwriters, they really want to know the story. So, it only makes
yeah
sense that the story and being creative can overcome, whether or not they're making
yeah
X number of dollars or a little bit more than X number of dollars.
Yeah. And those things that I just mentioned, those are not time consuming things. Those aren't things that are going to take like hours at a time. A 2 minute video,
Yeah.
a 2 or 3 minute call to the listing
Yeah.
agent, a 5 minute written letter. It's just a little bit extra. You're doing that little bit extra for your clients, right? And it will help for sure.
Right. Right. No, I
And so the
totally agree.
last point here, well, building your team, and it's about communicating, right? It's about communicating with your clients, having everybody being on the same page as well. And I find the process of the home buying process, and even after the home closes, is it just goes so much smoother when you have your realtor, your mortgage broker, and your lawyer all on the same page communicating.
Right.
Just makes the
I couldn't
process
agree
so
more.
much.
What
Yeah,
when I have a client who just got their approval tonight, and it was sort of a unique situation because there was a question about zoning in this property where they're buying a residential property, but it's zoned in a strange way, and this is one you can't overcome. But when I connected with their accountant, when I connected with their lawyer, with their realtor, each of these people has a part to play. I ended up having to find out
yeah,
that the way the documentation was at the township wasn't correct. Like there's a whole bunch of things that can play into this. And if you build your team as a buyer, remember we're talking to buyers in this call, right? You as a buyer, if you
yeah.
build your team, remember it doesn't cost money to have a buyer's representation on your real estate agent, right?
That's right.
The price is the price. It doesn't
Yep.
cost money to work with a mortgage broker over just contacting the bank that you have your checking account with. Like it doesn't cost money to have access to 50 lenders versus one, or access to all
Yep.
that advice versus none. So put a team around you because a team is going to help you to be successful. Yeah, I totally get
Yeah.
it. I
That's
totally get it.
exactly it.
So what are we missing here? I mean, that was really interesting. But like, is there anything we're missing here before we sort of slide forward in this and give people a little bit more information about? I think it's financing next.
I don't know. Is there anything we're missing?
I think we've covered a lot.
I
I mean,
think,
I think really
yeah,
that's big. Yeah. Okay. Let's dive into, I think, the part about being local.
right.
So the reason why for me this slide is so important is because we have a lot of out of town buyers. We have a lot of people changing cities. We have a lot of people moving into Guelph or moving into KW or wherever from a lot. It's the GTA, but it could be anywhere. And having representation from somebody that knows the area just becomes so critically important because there's things that are going to be special and unique. And Rob, this is really your thing, but help us
Yeah.
understand a little bit more about these things.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you want somebody who knows the area, knows the neighborhoods, the one thing that we're seeing more and more of is parents want their children going to the best school, a top
Yeah.
school in the city, right? So it's about, your realtor is going to know, your local realtor is going to know, what the best neighborhoods are, or depending on what neighborhood you're looking for.
Right.
Is it going to be possible that you're going to have a student living beside you? Where there's going to be like frat parties out on your neighbor's front lawn every other weekend,
Right.
Um, so
Right.
it's things like that you want your clients to know about, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Local.
Yeah. I mean, and there we totally get that a lot of folks bring maybe representation from out of town, because it's
Yeah.
people that they trust, right? But there's some things about the unique market here that makes you an expert. I mean, I if I were,
Yeah.
you know, educated in this geography, it doesn't mean that I necessarily could sell a house in Windsor. I can look up the
Yeah.
stats, but
Yep.
I can understand how that might be harder. So, no, being connected
Yeah.
locally is really important. I think that bleeds into the second point, which is have a team. We talked about that in the last slide, but remember that your team is not just your realtor and your mortgage agent and maybe your lawyer, right? As you're preparing to move and as you're making that move, I get requests all the time from clients, and you probably even more, for
Yeah.
things like, hey, can you recommend a good lawyer? Can you recommend a plumber or electrician? We want to get something looked at when we move in. Hey, can you recommend
Yeah.
somebody that can help? And so we're talking about, we joke and say like the welcoming committee, but you know, a lot of folks would move into a new area of town, maybe not even a new town, but a new area of town,
Yeah.
or a new city
Yep.
altogether, and not know anybody. So
That's right.
so being locally connected, can really help to make you feel more comfortable, to fit in sooner, and to avoid pain and frustration when you can't figure out who to call, and you're, like we don't use the phone book anymore, but you're on Google searching for, which plumber's
Yeah.
available, that's not going to be too expensive or do a bad job, right? So that's just critical.
Yeah. The local realtor or the local people, the local teams will have that Rolodex of people that they've worked with before, and that
Yeah.
all of our jobs are referral based, right? So it's about referring out to people, to good people that you worked with in the past, right?
Right, right. I think that's important, right? So, you know, and that's more along the lines of the third point, which is, yes, we're invested locally. My business comes mostly from referrals, right? Like, so
Yeah.
what that means to the buyers is that I'm really invested, and I think the same goes for you, Rob. But we're both really invested in the success and happiness of our client. So when I get a client,
Yeah.
this is not a one and done thing, because it's very likely that that person may refer someone to me in the future. And if I make sure I take care of them in whatever way that I can, I'm more likely to be able to grow my business, which ultimately is what we're after. So, it's
Yeah.
not about, doing a deal and then forgetting about it. It's not about that at
No.
all. It's about, like, because everybody
Yeah.
talks about their experience, right? Oh, I have a guy, I know somebody. Oh, she helped me. That was my great realtor she had. Like, those things are all super important. So it's nice to know that, there's some local connection that's going to help people no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that sort of ties into the last point about stress, but tell us more about seeing trends. What can somebody in this market, if they're looking to move into the Guelph, KW, Cambridge, what kinds of things can they expect as far as trends that maybe they wouldn't see if they weren't working with, somebody who had that
Somebody
local
local.
experience?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's about, um, I found out very quickly that, the big trend of the GTA people moving this way, right? Especially
Yep.
last year. Um, so I mean, there's picking up on that trend. There's also, what projects are going on in the city, right? Now Google doesn't always tell you about, what local builds are going up, where are they going, schools that are being built, high schools, public schools, whatever, right? It's just looking at for things like that, and giving that information to your clients that
Yeah.
you
No,
wouldn't be able to necessarily find online.
yeah, yeah, I get it, and it's way faster and easier to get that information from someone who knows. So again, it all
Yeah.
sort of wraps up into making it less stressful for people to find somebody that works in the area that knows the area that you can trust, because they can help
Yep.
make the whole purchase process, the buying process. Remember, like, realtors know each other, right? And I know
Yeah.
lawyers in town, like, we these are people we've already worked with. So when you have a relationship that already exists, think about how much easier for the client that gets. So this is just good for
Yeah.
people to know when they're thinking about making that move, is, find someone you can trust that can give you the best experience possible.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Now this is my favorite part, Rob. The part about money.
Yeah. You get to talk about
So,
money.
yeah, that's my favorite part. So, for those on the call, most of you are probably familiar with what a mortgage broker does. But it's worth saying that, as a mortgage broker, I don't work for any one lender. I'm not employed by any one of the lenders. Last year my brokerage dealt with over 50 different lenders, and my job is to basically match make, to connect the client, their family, whatever their situation is, with the right mortgage for them. Sometimes it's for refinancing, or sometimes they already have a house, but whatever it is, in the case of buying, it's about making that connection. So, the important thing to know, and I said this earlier, is that clients do not pay for the services of a mortgage agent or a mortgage broker. You shouldn't be asked to pay. Your compensation comes from the lender. So that's important to know, is that, this is, we disclose this up front, is that the lender pays a finder's fee. So we go out and we shop the market to find the best possible deal, and that's how that works. The next question I always get is about mortgage rates, but before we do, there's a question coming in. So the question is how to choose the right mortgage. Can we talk about the different types? Yeah, I will definitely do that. Thank you very much, Arturo, for that question. So in the topic of rates, his question is really timely. So, essentially what people will often ask me is what's going to happen in the future, right? And, I joke about the crystal ball and polishing it up and looking inside, and, I never get a good answer. So, the only thing we can do is be connected to the market and know the factors that contribute to those things. And from there, it helps me to make much more educated commentary on what's happening. So, for example, right now, and this helps to answer Arturo's question a little bit, different types of mortgages, primarily we're talking about fixed and variable. And from there, we're talking about different lengths of term, from 1 year, 2 year, all the way up to 10 year, right? And some lenders are doing more 10 years, and that might be interesting. But the main differences between fixed and variable are very simple. In a fixed rate mortgage, you're promising to pay that lender X number of payments each month between now and when it's over. So that you're making a commitment to pay that same amount of interest, to pay all for the next 5 years. In some ways, it's sort of like a lease, right? You're committing to the payments. In a variable rate mortgage, your payments go up and down based on changes in the interest rates. Now, that may sound scary. They don't necessarily go up and down very quickly, but they can change. So floating payments in a variable rate mortgage and fixed payments in a fixed rate mortgage. That's the biggest noticeable difference. The other differences that people need to understand mostly come down to penalties, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But essentially, fixed rate mortgages, when you want to change, pay off, sell, refinance, anything, if you need to make a change and break that contract, you're going to face a prepayment penalty that is usually much higher in a fixed rate mortgage versus a variable rate mortgage. So if your lifestyle is that, hey, we might get transferred to my job, my family might move here, we might need to get a bigger house. If you have a chance of maybe needing to sell before the term is up, it's really important for you to understand the penalty. And we can talk about that a little bit later on. But basically, you need to think about your lifestyle. So that this is to answer Arturo's question. You can choose the right mortgage by thinking about your lifestyle, your comfort level with risk, and be really honest with yourself about the chances of you moving or not moving. Because about 80% of Canadians still pick the 5-year fixed but about 2/3 of all mortgages don't make it to the 5 years. So what that means is that 2/3 of people have to pay a penalty to refinance or break that mortgage before it's up. And it can be very expensive in the case of a fixed rate mortgage in the first couple of years to get out. So your mortgage broker, or if you're working with your bank directly, you should be having very detailed conversations about this. Your penalty should not be hiding on the last page. You don't talk about it. It's important to talk about it now, because once you're in, the cost to get out can be a lot. So I hope that helps. The next thing I want to go over is getting approved for the highest amount. There are things that you can do to make sure that you maximize your approval. And the things I want to mention is primarily plan ahead. So if you're thinking about buying in a year, there's nothing wrong with talking with a mortgage broker right now. Call up, have a conversation. There's no commitment. Talk about your situation. There's things you can do. I just had a call with a client about 2 hours before this webinar started, and they want to buy in 6 months to a year. And they asked me, should we pay off our credit cards first, or should we save more for our down payment? Should we maximize our savings, or should we get rid of that debt? And the answer is different for everybody. Yeah, the answer is different for everybody. That's the funny thing about it, because what ends up happening is it depends on your individual ratios. So without getting into deep detail, ask early. And then we can make choices and we can make decisions in the process that can help to improve that for you, right? Of course, save up as much as you can, but if you don't get over 20%, there's a lot more regulations and guidelines in the approval. So we can talk about how being over 20% might help you to get flexibility, especially if you're self-employed or uniquely employed. So that's really critical. We talked a lot about condition of finance earlier, so I won't spend a ton of time, but be aware that conditions of finance are harder to get. It's harder to be successful with that. So the more research you do up front, the better. Get pre-approved and ask your mortgage lender, ask your mortgage broker what was done for that pre-approval. So some pre-approvals, people don't know this. Some pre-approvals are literally done by a computer. It's like 30 seconds, you're pre-approved, and based on whatever numbers you put into that calculator. So that's fine, but just know that if nobody looks at that and really starts to analyze the situation, that pre-approval is not as valuable as if somebody had really reviewed it. So there's a difference. That's called a fully underwritten pre-approval. It's uncommon, but some lenders do it, but it's a lot of work. Then there's, where your mortgage broker can really look at the documents for you. And that's really the big difference, is you want to have somebody actually review your documentation. So if you put in your income, I made $87,000 last year. My wife made, $97,000 last year. Okay, we added up. Okay, that's our number. We want to buy a house for $600,000, approved. Be very careful, because overtime gets judged differently than your regular pay. If you're hourly and your hours are inconsistent, then what you did this year, let's say your 2020 taxes, you got your T4 and your income was much higher, but in 2020 it was less, or in 2019 it was less. Just know that hourly employees have to look at a 2-year average. So bonuses, commission, overtime, self-employment, all these things you may not think are important, but they factor heavily into the amount you get approved for. So, without spending too much time, because I know we're going long on this, make sure you ask questions about what kind of pre-approval do I have? How confident are you? And that's why it's so important to work with somebody you trust. All right, how confident are you in this pre-approval? Because I have clients that they're totally comfortable, and I have others that say, no, I want the condition. So that you just have to know. And the last thing here before we get into unique employment is know your exit strategy. So I sort of talked about that earlier, but what that really comes down to is everybody worries about the mortgage rate. Everybody asks me about the mortgage rate, and you even talk with your friends sometimes, like, hey, what rate did you guys get? Oh, we got a good rate. We're at whatever. Nobody worries until they have to about the price to get out, right? The mortgage rate is the price to get in, but the penalty is the price to get out. So ask about that when you're going through the process. Make sure you understand, what are the prepayment penalties like? How much can I prepay, right? Nobody thinks they're going to want to pay more on their mortgage than they have to, but breaking the mortgage because you sold the house is the same as prepaying. So be aware of that. And lastly, for those in unique situations, self-employment, CERB, if you get ahead of it and ask questions of your mortgage agent up front, then it can make such a difference in your approval. So focus heavily on this when you're a buyer. Even if you're selling your existing property, ask a lot of questions and make sure you feel good about the things that you're hearing so you can feel confident. When you get into Rob's office or your realtor's office and you go and look at houses, right? Make sure you can feel confident about it. So I hope that helps for those that are, thinking about the financing side. So let's move on to the next part. So this is a process. I mean, Rob, why don't you walk us through the process? For me, the process starts where I go on realtor.ca and I start looking at houses, and then I just go to open houses. And I think I usually skip some of the stuff, but tell me where am I going wrong?
Skipping a lot of stuff. Yeah, you might even skip the whole process of it just going from going online and then just trying to put in an offer.
Yeah. Just
But
call
no,
call the listing
so
agent, tell them I want to put in an
yeah,
offer and I want the best deal.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what you know what that's what a lot of people do, and that's not the best way. But yeah, so I mean, the first thing you want to do is you want to set your goals up, right? So you want to agree on, a timeline at least, right? When do you want to move, and how does that look? What type of home? So you want to be in agreement with that. Next step is what we've kind of been talking about a lot tonight, pre-approval, right? So it's finding out how much you can afford, how much you can spend, how much is that lender going to give you to help you get that home. After that, yeah,
On
it's
goals,
you know
Rob,
it's
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but on goals, are we talking about your goals for the house? Are we talking about having discussions with your family?
yeah, well, yeah, and having discussions with your family. Yes, having
Okay.
discussions with your family. Yeah,
Okay.
or it could be
Okay.
personal goals in life,
Oh
whatever,
yeah, depending on your situation. I'm just
whatever's
saying,
going to
like,
help you.
yeah,
It's starting. It's the plan. It's really the starting with the
yeah,
plan, right? What does the plan look like? And I've seen that before where clients actually, they have like, a spreadsheet of their plan, which is great. Um,
spreadsheet's my favorite
and
client
then
right
yeah,
there.
it's exactly, can't go wrong. So and then yeah, you pick your realtor, you go to showings, and it's choosing wisely, not open houses. You depending on how many offers, but you putting it in an offer and then you get an accepted offer. And so we put in be patient. It can take some time, especially in the way the market is today. It could take several offers before you get the right one accepted.
Yeah,
Um, and then
yeah,
finally, there's getting approval and the closing, and it doesn't stop at closing again. It's the communication with your team again. That's all part of it, and it continues even after closing, right? Like we said, if you need a contractor or a plumber, it's reaching out to us and letting us know what you need.
right. It's
Our job
funny.
doesn't stop at closing.
No, no, not at all. In fact, most of my clients ask me that question. Hey, what happens after we're done? Do we stop talking to you? And no. The answer is no. I can still help to make administrative changes. I keep an eye on rates for you. I make recommendations for maybe you should consider switching halfway through. I mean, I look at all that, but what I see here on this slide really is, in summary, it's that most of us, we get excited. It's like car shopping or house shopping, and I want to go right to step 3. I want to go right to showings. I don't want to
Yeah.
do the part where I have to think about the real reality. I don't want I and I'm not saying that sort of in a funny way. I'm saying I don't want to think about the hard stuff. I want to go to the part where I can look at the house that I want or the car that I want. And it's so critical if you want to be successful to to figure out the goals. And that doesn't mean you have to have a list of things written down or a binder. You just have to know, because those questions are going to come up with your realtor, your mortgage agent, all that. So start with a good foundation plan so that you can execute. And this is how we can win in 2021 and beyond. A question just came in from Brittany. So Brittany says, where in this timeline would it be appropriate to start working with the realtor? Is it before or after pre-approval? So I have a take, and maybe you have a different take. But what my
Yeah,
take
go
is
ahead.
that Brittany, it's a great question. Often the pre-approval is probably the first time that I recommend you reach out to anybody. Although you might find that talking to your realtor first might help if you're not really sure about your goals as far as the house. So, for example, maybe you're not sure about condo versus freehold. Maybe you're not sure about some of the big picture stuff, and you just want to know, which direction you want to go in. Maybe it's the city, maybe it's the type of house, and you might want to get some of that education first. But I wouldn't recommend going out and seeing houses. Some realtors won't even take you out to see houses until you get a pre-approval. But in a lot of my clients' case, I'm the first person they call, and maybe they have the realtor either waiting in the wings because it's somebody they know and trust, or maybe they haven't talked to them yet. But it might depend, but I would say you want to do the pre-approval really early, because that sets the stage for everything and makes your process with the realtor so much easier. Rob, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, I know I have lots of people that I'm still waiting on them to speak to somebody about their financing, right? Like,
Right.
they've already either reached out to me or I've reached out to them, but they haven't even talked to, they don't have
Right.
their financing in order, right? So there's really nothing you can do until the financing. So it's definitely in between, setting your goals and pre-approval, or after the pre-approval and obviously before showings. What I do see a lot of the time, though, is they skip the goals, skip the pre-approval, skip the showings, and boom, it's right to the offer.
I
It's
found a
like
house, put an
they see
offer
the
in.
home, they see, yeah, where's my finger? They see the home that they want online. They have not been pre-approved. They have not
Yeah.
done the showings, and they just contact the listing agent and they say, "Hey, yeah, when can I see this house?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that. So here's the thing, too, right? A lot of people like to work with the listing agent. So think about this. The listing agent has signed a contract all the time, 100% of the time, with the seller. So they have a
Right.
binding contract with somebody. Is it going to be in their best interest to try and get a deal with you, or try and get a deal for the person that they have a contract with? So
Right.
this is why we have buyer agents. Again, our services are free. We only get paid on, the sale of a home, but we're here to provide advice, give you the information you need to make the best decision.
Right. Right, exactly.
Hopefully
So
that
I mean,
helps.
we joke about it, but you definitely
Yeah,
should try and do the process as much as you can.
yeah,
Sometimes things are out of your control, but in general, that's the preferred way to go about it. So I think once
yeah,
we cover that, that covers a lot of the things that we want to talk about. And this, we've actually gone a little long today, but in sort of
yeah,
wrapping up. I want to first of all thank everybody. I think we went through a ton of content today. We sort of expected it to be a little shorter, but this is a really important topic for me, and I get sort of excited about it, and I'm sure same for you, Rob.
yeah,
So at this point, if somebody has questions, we'd love to hear them. If you don't have any more questions and you want to jump off and send them privately, that's fine too. Just drop a question in the chat, and we're available as much as need be. But before everyone hops off, I just want to say thank you. We appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to spend an hour, learning about how you might be successful in 2021 and beyond. If you have questions specifically for a realtor and you want to reach out to Rob directly, please do. We're not necessarily linked at the hip. You don't have to contact me to work with Rob, or vice versa. If you have a realtor that you already are working with and you want to have questions for a mortgage agent, please, we're happy to help together or separately, whatever works best for you. But thank you very much for your time, and I'll stop the recording and give everyone a second to ask questions. But thanks everybody.